is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, aka The Shy Kid, and you are listening to The Shy Kid podcast presented by Give Us a Shot Network. So make sure you hit the link in the bio below, give us a like, give us a follow, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're talking NFL football and the Bears all year long, baby. You know, we're back at it, fresh with the tat, new Bears tat to start the season. Old school logo, 1980s style. Love to see it. But man, let's get into it, man, because speaking of the 80s, speaking of Bears history, HBO's Hard Knocks and the Chicago Bears have partnered for the first time in Hard Knocks history and in Bears history. This is the first time the Chicago Bears have ever been on Hard Knocks. They were one of the last remaining teams in the NFL that hasn't been a part of it. Episode 1 aired last night. There's a lot of different opinions. I know some people loved it, some people hated it, some people felt indifferent, and I know a lot of people just don't really traditionally watch Hard Knocks because maybe one, they just don't have HBO Max, or two, they're just not too interested in it. They're only interested in the game, so that's completely understandable. But today we're going to be breaking it down, talking about what we saw, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we thought could have been better. First of all, we got to start with the intro to everything. Obviously, Gale Sayers, Walter Payton, Bill Murray makes the cut in the opening scene. You'll love to see it. But there's so many other, legends, Chicago legends, and also just Chicago Bear legends that they paid homage to during this episode, and I thought that was really cool. We talked about it very early on in the episode. Coach Matt Eberflus won the hearts of many people. I know my guy Kevin Lapka even said, the idea is they're supposed to make you more likable. Hard Knocks is supposed to make you more likable, make the fans get excited. But Flus, just was himself, I felt like, the entire time, from what we've seen from top to bottom, but more fleshed out. You get to see more from him than just him at a podium. Him talking about, Walter Payton ran hills every morning. You go find out what works for you. Go find out what legends before you did that worked and do that. And that was really cool for me. Flus was such a huge part of Hard Knocks episode 1. Obviously, his wife, his kids, really just getting ingrained in understanding his coaching staff, understanding his personnel. Caleb Williams, Nick Saban, who I got to see in person, really cool when I was at training camp with my boy James. It was like, you're seeing a legend before you, and it's really cool. But there's so many things we liked about throughout this episode. Starting off with the Blues Brothers song, "She Got the Katie." It's iconic. It's iconic. Now, I personally, myself, I think Sweet Home Chicago would have been a little bit better. But again, maybe that's a little bit cornier. So maybe they wanted to go a different route with it. I enjoyed it. I thought the episode was really cool. From Cole Kmet's first pitch at Wrigley. Obviously, he's from the Chicagoland area. He's not from Chicago. He's from the Chicagoland area. Then you have Caleb Williams and the Michael Jordan music. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I thought the episode overall was really cool. I did think, there's a lot of conversations because we're going to dive into the episode, but this was just my initial reaction. I loved Hard Knocks. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was dope to see Caleb Williams really getting his first reps as a Chicago Bear. Nick Saban, Matt Eberflus, the entire staff from top to bottom was really dope to see. Personally, myself, though, I felt like the bigger storyline would have been if they would have did what the Giants did during the offseason. If you would have gotten a chance to see Ryan Poles making these decisions to put this roster together in a historic offseason, potentially the greatest Chicago Bears offseason of all time, I think it's a little better of a storyline than the Hall of Fame game only lasting 3 quarters and training camp. In a potential situation where the Chicago Bears are in the offseason during Hard Knocks, you're going to see the scenes of Ryan Poles calling Justin Fields to let him know he's been traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're going to see him making phone calls to get guys like Keenan Allen and DeAndre Swift through free agency and trading. You'd also be able to see him drafting Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, going through the combine, going through interviews, walkthroughs, all this different type of stuff, hiring Shane Waldron. There's a lot of different ways it could have went. I think as dope as this was, I think they should have probably did it during the offseason. That's just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people might feel differently, but I don't know. I think it would have been cooler. Could you imagine a scene where, Ryan Poles gets on the phone and he's like, "Justin, listen, we just traded you to Pittsburgh. The deal's done." And then they're going to go move on to drafting Caleb Williams, going through the combine progressions, going through all this other stuff. I just think that's sick. I just think that's incredible. Trading for Keenan Allen. What were those conversations like? Was there a bargain there. Obviously you only trade him away or they only get him for a fourth round pick. Could have been kind of cool. But regardless, I thought it was super cool, super dope. Lot of fun there. But I think, I want to get back to what we saw. One of the opening scenes is Caleb Williams coming in, and you hear all the Chicago radio voices from Big Cat to Dave and Jay Hood and everybody else, really just talking about how he has the potential to be the greatest Chicago athlete of all time since Michael Jordan. And I think what's so cool about that is when they pull up the Michael Jordan 90s Bulls theme song, and now, they're doing the Caleb Williams, I think it's incredible. It's incredible to really be in a situation right now to where we're seeing this happen in real time. I say it all the time. I was born the beginning of a whole new century. You know what I mean? Like, I am 2000, born and raised. And I think the coolest thing for me is really just seeing this for the first time in person. I never saw Jordan. I never saw Sweetness. I never saw so many greats before us. Yeah, Chris Bryant, Patrick Kane, Anthony Rizzo, Derrick Rose. That's great. But I've never seen anything to the magnitude of Michael Jordan. Somebody with that aura, with that presence that comes in and you're like, that's that guy. He's going to be the guy. We had hoped that was a Justin Fields caliber player, but again, he went 11th overall. It's kind of a different situation. I've never seen something like this. And I think they hit the nail on the head with the Michael Jordan theme, everything they're doing right now, trying to, pump him up to be one of the greatest marketed players in Chicago Bears history. And I'm not saying the greatest player in Chicago, but the greatest marketed. They have marketed him in a way we have never seen them market anybody before. And that's really just what it is. I think they're doing a great job at it. I think you can tell the differences between how they marketed Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams. It's really cool. It's really cool to see it happen. It's really cool to see it in real time. And I think it was a really cool scene. And I know Big Cat was probably from Barstool Sports, was probably geeked that he made the Hard Knocks cut. But there were a lot of moments. There were a lot of moments in this episode. There were a lot of moments where you could kind of look back and say, hey, like, this was a top takeaway. We're going to do really quickly our top 3 moments and then our top 3 takeaways of Hard Knocks episode 1. Top moment number 1 for me was Nick Saban and Matt Eberflus' discussion. Now, obviously, Nick Saban previously coached Matt Eberflus, I believe in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. He coached him in college before he goes to Alabama, et cetera, et cetera. The rest is history, 7 championships, whatever. But he's a huge mentor to him. Nick Saban is a huge mentor for Matt Eberflus. And I think it's really cool to be able to see that player coach dynamic and to really just see them continue to have those conversations year in and year out, even decades since they last played on the same field together. I myself, and any other athlete, if you have that great relationship with a coach, you're definitely going to be able to keep that bond for far more than football. You're talking about kids, you're talking about life, you're talking about jobs and work and things that are going on in your everyday life. I myself have, Ben Needich from football and my baseball coach who I got a chance to coach with just a couple years ago in Joe Mack. So, there's a lot of guys who, have really been influential in so many players' lives, but don't really stick around after the fact. So to see Nick Saban come on camp, Matt Eberflus invites him to Hallis Hall, brings him in. He gets to see Caleb Williams in person, and they get to have those conversations. I thought it was something really special, and I thought it's something that you don't get to see a lot of. You don't really get to see coaches talk a lot. I remember when the Bill Belichick, Nick Saban series dropped. I forgot what that was on. I believe that was on ESPN Plus or something. But that was cool, and that was something where you really get to pick the brain of greatness, really, and one of the greatest of all time. So, you get to see that. The biggest takeaway I took from it was him really kind of breaking down the Matt Eberflus, him being Nick Saban. You really get to see Nick Saban talk to Matt Eberflus about the difference between transactional and transformational leadership. And basically in that, he's kind of discussing about, you can't just coach depending on what you get in return, whether it's positive or negative. When you're a player, you're either good or you're bad. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. And that's just what it is. But when you're a transformational leader, you're trying to right those wrongs by still being positive, by still bringing in the information that needs to be said, that needs to be done in order to have success. You're trying to teach them good habits. You're trying to teach them how to be leaders amongst themselves. You're trying to transform not only the player, but the person. And I think that was a really cool understanding of like who Nick Saban is, and kind of understanding you're always going to have your quarterbacks back no matter what. You're never going to go at them in practice. You're never going to go at them in front of the team. And I think that's something for me when you talk about Matt Eberflus and what he's going to be for the Chicago Bears for the foreseeable future. There were a lot of people, and myself included, who believe that he might not finish the 2023 season. But obviously, we talk about leadership and we talk about, what we've seen thus far from the Chicago Bears organization. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that Ryan Poles believes in the culture that he's instilling, the HITS principle, everything we've seen over the last couple of years. It's going to be really cool to see what the future looks like for Matt Eberflus, especially bringing in Shane Waldron. Hopefully he can keep him here for several years to build up Caleb Williams and company. But the mentality of Matt Eberflus, I think that's something that, here's what it is at the end of the day. And I don't want this to get misconstrued. I don't want this to get clipped in the wrong way. The reality of the situation is I don't care what your culture or what your mentality is. If you're getting bodied by 40 points a game every single week, every single year, you know what I mean? And I think that's really where a lot of Bears fans were kind of like, he's a cool guy. Maybe he's a great coach. Maybe he's a great culture guy, a great person even. But if we're losing games, it doesn't fucking matter. And I think with this new regime, with this new identity to the Chicago Bears, I think people are going to start looking at him a lot differently, myself included. Because instead of looking at someone who, okay, he's a great person, maybe a great coach, maybe a great players coach, cool, but we're losing every game. Once he starts winning games, I mean, you're looking at that completely different. You're looking at a guy who could potentially win coach of the year. You know what I mean? And if the Chicago Bears win 10 plus games this year and we have one of the top 3, top 5 defenses, I think you have a legitimate conversation about that. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's really dope to see him have those interactions with Nick Saban, kind of trying to mentor him on how to develop a young quarterback. Now, where was he? Where was Nick Saban telling him all this stuff when Justin Fields was around? Who knows? Maybe they were texting, maybe they were calling each other. I don't know. I'm not speculating. But nonetheless, I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool. Number 2, one of my favorite moments that we saw was DJ Moore's contract extension scene. I think that's really cool. $110 million deal, one of the highest deals since Khalil Mack signed that $140+ million deal in 2018. It's really cool to see DJ get that experience, to really just say, hey, he's in the middle of a practice, in the middle of a walkthrough, he's bullshitting with Cole and Keenan, and then he gets privately called up to the front office. He walks into the room, his agent's there, multiple agents, if I'm not mistaken. Ryan Poles is there, Ian Cunningham is there. They have all the paperwork all already signed out. All he has to do, one signature, boom, and he's out of there. Now, and they might have cut that and spliced it in a different way, but even Ryan said, that was super quick, so I thought it was kind of cool how quick he signed it. And just like that, he's $100+ million more into his bank account. So I think that was really cool as well. And then number 3, this one, I have an honorable mention after this, but this one was just cool, especially with the time that we're in today. We talked a little bit earlier about the Caleb Williams and Michael Jordan stuff, but Jonathan Owens and Simone Biles and their relationship and what he has to do just to see some of her competitions at 4 or 5 in the morning. He gets to go to Paris to go see her in person. And then after that, he's back in camp. I think it's incredible. I think it's really cool. We got a chance to see Simone Biles both on FaceTime and both participating in the Olympics, winning multiple gold medals this year and a silver. So shout out to her. But I think it's really cool to see that scene, to see what it's like to and listen, not to say he is, because he's a professional athlete in his own regard, but to be a cheerleader. He is a cheerleader for his wife. And I think it was really cool to see that. It was really cool to see the other side of things, because, we always see the female version of that. We see in the quarterback series, Patrick Mahomes' wife, Kirk Cousins' wife, the receiver series, you're seeing everybody's wives, really just supporting their husbands on the field. And now we're seeing a professional male athlete of the Chicago Bears, former Green Bay Packer, supporting his wife on the biggest stage in the entire world. So I think it was really cool to see something like that. I think it was cool to see the narrative flipped of, the woman supporting the man to now the man supporting the woman. It's things you don't get to see often. These aren't things that get posted. These aren't things that, typically are talked about. So I think it was a cool little role reverse. I think it was something that, needs to be talked about more. And, shout out Jonathan Owens. I do hope he does make this team. And it's a lot of fun. My honorable mention, though, is the rookie performances. We always see the rookie performances every training camp, or you'll see it on social medias. Everybody doing something. Obviously Caleb Williams bombed the the John Legend Ordinary People song. Didn't even get through the first chorus. But here we go. Let's get into it, man. The Canadian Eagle. Talk about it with the I don't even know what that was. A thong, a banana hammock. I don't even know. But it had a giant American eagle on it. We're talking about rookie offensive tackle from Canada, Theo Benedict. Theo, even though in this game, or not in this game, in this episode, finds out he has a hamstring injury that's likely going to take him out of the remainder of camp. He won me over. He's somebody I would want on this squad. Now, I don't know if he's going to make the roster. That's up to Ryan Poles. Based off of Ryan Poles, I tried to read it. Like, you're trying to read his facial expressions. He seemed frustrated by it. Obviously, that's not what you want to happen. So he's going to be frustrated, but, frustrated enough to tell that he had plans for him. So I'm excited about Theo, man. I'm hoping he ends up making this team. I'm hoping he ends up being a part of this organization, whether that's on the practice squad or not. I think he could do a lot of justice. Obviously, he won the hearts of so many through that song. Tyson Bagent was into it. He's singing "Proud to be an American" like no other. Like he's belting it. So you love to see that, man. I mean, it's definitely crazy. That was my honorable mention. But yeah, top three moments for me throughout this episode. Obviously, number one, Nick Saban and Matt Eberflus' discussion. Them just, talking ball, talking game. Number two, DJ Moore's contract extension scene in the front office. Thought that was incredible. Number three, Jonathan Owens and Simone Biles with the honorable mention of Theo Benedict and Caleb Williams in their little rookie talks. So, top three takeaways from this episode, though. I think my biggest takeaway from Hard Knocks episode 1 was we have leadership up the ass. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you see DeAndre Swift telling Caleb Williams on the sideline, tell us to do it right. You have the keys to this thing. This is your ride. You know what I mean? You have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen talking about the X's and O's of running routes and their route trees and trying to get Caleb on the same page, find green grass. That was really the key right there of trying to make sure that he's the best version of himself. Obviously, we saw a little bit of Jalen Johnson and company, but primarily the leadership from the defense that we saw through this episode was Matt Eberflus. And you're seeing the leader that he is, giving everyone specific nicknames, making sure everyone's comfortable, everyone's happy, everyone knows that he has his best interest in them. So I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a great segment. Number two, I know this is an obvious one, but it was something that I wasn't sure of until we really saw training camp go underway and really saw some Hard Knocks film. This is going to be a very pass-heavy team. And I know when you bring in Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet with Caleb Williams, it's very obvious. But if we're being completely honest, when you have DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, and a rookie quarterback, you really don't know what way or what direction they're going to go into with Caleb Williams. But from what we've seen thus far, Caleb's been fully allowed to just let it air out, go out there and be the best version of yourself. Let it air out, do your thing, let it fly. And that's really what it came down to. So I loved what we're seeing thus far. I mean, he's hitting Keenan Allen in stride. He's hitting DJ Moore. Rome Odunze looked great. Big Rome, he doesn't even need a nickname. Rome just sounds cool, according to Flus. So yeah, man, I think there's a lot to it. A lot of questions about what the run game is going to look like and the impact it's going to have in 2024. We look back on 2023, and I would say probably the run game in 2023 was probably 65 to 75% of the Chicago Bears offense, maybe more. And in 2024, it kind of looks like the complete opposite. We flipped it on its head. Now I would say we're primarily going to be passing the ball, probably 60% of the time, running the ball about 40% of the time, depending on how things work out. But it's going to be interesting to see the future transformation of Caleb Williams and how he continues to develop. Number three, my biggest takeaway from this game, there were a lot of different things I could have said here. Now, one, or from this game, from this episode. My biggest takeaway obviously is going to be on the offense because we didn't get to see a lot of the defense throughout this. We saw Jalen Johnson in his little I mean, I don't even know what kind of car that was, a go-kart. I don't know what it was. But it was cool. It was cool. We saw a little bit of Montez Sweat throwing stuff at Caleb Williams when he's singing. So we're going to keep it on the offense. Number 3, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen throughout this entire show, throughout this entire episode, has the aura, the leadership, the command, everything you want. And he's showing up and showing out in practice every single day. So I loved what we saw from Keenan. He is the X factor for the Chicago Bears offense, in my opinion. I think, we're going to go as far as Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze allow us to go. And Keenan's going to be one of the biggest contributors to that. So I loved what we saw from Keenan. I know that's not the hottest of takes, but it's definitely my take. So I loved what we saw. But yeah, man, I love this episode. I know this is a shorter episode. There's not much to talk about. It's just a little Hard Knocks talk. We're going to be talking to Jenna, Tony, and so many other Bears fans later to get their opinions on it. And I'll close it off with what I said in the beginning. I thought Hard Knocks was great. I thought the episode overall was fantastic. It was a lot of fun for me to be able to see those, little BTS shorts and really just see what they were able to do. I loved Hard Knocks. I thought it was awesome. The only thing for me is, I loved what the Giants did in the offseason, and I think it was really cool to see them really be able to bring that out. And I wished we would have got a chance to see those type of moves happen in the offseason. Again, I hear a lot of people say, with the hype the Bears have and, what Caleb Williams has the intangibles to do, you want to see him in training camp. But if this does end up being the greatest offseason in Chicago Bears history, I would have liked to see that play out. I would have liked to see Justin Fields get the phone call that he's been traded. I would have liked to see Ryan Poles on the phone with the, I almost said San Diego, with the Los Angeles Chargers about trading for Keenan Allen, signing DeAndre Swift, trying to sign Saquon Barkley, drafting Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, talking to them at the combine, draft day, everything. You would have seen all of it. And I think that was kind of a missed opportunity. The Giants it was boring. The Giants Hard Knocks was boring, point blank, period. Nothing was happening. And all that happened was, they lost 2 of their best players. So I think if the Bears would have been able to do it, and then the Giants would have been doing it now, especially with the little, the scrap that happened the other day with Daniel Jones getting in there, I think it would have been really cool. But all in all, I think if I had to grade episode 1 of Chicago Bears Hard Knocks 2024, I give it about a 7.5. I didn't mind it whatsoever. Didn't think it was perfect, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was cool. Again, like I said, the Caleb Williams, Michael Jordan theme music coming in the beginning is incredible. You're hearing all the radio voices in Chicago just talk about how he has the intangibles to be the greatest Chicago Bear in the modern day history. And you're really just saying he is the next thing since Michael Jordan. And I think that's really cool. I think it's incredible. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. This will be episode 1 of Hard Knocks' recap. 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. But until then, I'll check you guys out next week for episode 2. Peace. Hey, real quick. Almost forgot. Pardon me. Happy birthday to Mike Powers, baby. Woo! Not a day over 21, baby.
Give him a shot to do what?